Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. At the time of recording, I have just finished watching, I haven't just finished, I've recently finished watching the second season of Netflix's Witcher adaptation, and a review for that will come out soon, just as I did for the first season. Before I present any further Witcher reviews, however, I thought it would improve my credentials somewhat if I presented my own alternative take on what the first season of the adaptation should have actually looked like. For those of you who are curious, the TLDW of my first season review is that it was overall a little bit overly ambitious. It tried to do too much too fast, and it ended up being very sloppy. It tried to reinvent the wheel and came up with something that could hardly be used as a wheel. That is somewhat disappointing, because not only were the books, were the original Witcher books quite cinematic in a sense, or generally visually appealing, they were also very quick, very crisp, very effective at portraying or rather conveying complex character and setting information, while also delivering a very engaging narrative. So the fact that the adaptation dropped the ball when it came to that aspect of the stories is somewhat disappointing. And Netflix, or maybe just Lauren Hisrich in particular, I'm not really sure who's to blame here, would have made a better adaptation if they just adopted the blind idiot approach and copied the short stories of the first book, The Last Wish, wholesale. And to be honest, if I were in charge of the Netflix adaptation, that is pretty much exactly what I would have done. I would have taken each individual story and tried to copy try to break down all of the plot beats and action scenes as as minutely and accurately as possible, and then try to translate them as literally and as accurately as the budget allows on the to live action. Same thing with dialogue. The dialogue in the show should mirror or reproduce at least 90% of the dialogue present within the books, because I think that is the best way to really convey what what's actually going on, and what characterizes this world. And that is how I would present episodes in general. I won't go into individual episodes because that would overcomplicate this video very quickly. Instead, I'll now give a season overview. And in my head, I think the best way to outline the season is to have the 6 main stories that make up The Last Wish, i.e. the first book in the Witcher saga. Each of these short stories should be their own episodes, with the voice of reason, which kind of acts as a framing story within the within this collection, and which shows up in snippets between all of these stories, should also serve as the framing story for the for the first season. The more observant among you might have noticed a potential problem with this approach. Namely, that would give the season 6 episodes, but the Netflix season is actually 8 episodes long, or at least the original. So what do I do with those last 2? Do I just cut them out? No. What I would do instead is I would try to what I would do with those instead is that I would try to use them to flesh out the other 2 characters in the main triad Netflix is trying to push, namely Ciri and Yennefer. They would have solo episodes, obviously. Ciri's episode would take place right after the adaptation of not take place, would be aired, or rather played right after the adaptation of A Question of Price, the episode where her parents get engaged, and show her as a child roaming around the royal court of Skellige, where she has, she has relatives, acquaintances, whatever. And while she's there, she might, get into some kind of adventure, shenanigans, and etc. And we would follow how she reacts to those. What could she be up to? Well, there are a few possibilities. Maybe she runs away from home. Maybe she discovers a thief at the royal court, but no one believes her when she says who the thief actually is. Maybe she has reasons to believe there's an assassin at the court and tries to, stop the assassin. There are a bunch of possibilities you could there are a bunch of possible stories you could tell here. The important thing is that you need to show Ciri taking charge of her actions, being proactive within her story, and also you need to show her as being in the right, so that the audience has to agree with her. Even if they don't agree with her actions, they at least agree or understand her motivations. That is because that is the most accurate mirror of who Ciri is in the books as well. She is very principled. She does things because she knows she has this feeling in her gut that it is true, that is not necessarily true, but it is the right thing to do. It is what and it is it is authentic to herself, so to speak. and that very much informs who she is throughout the books as a whole. A little firecracker with the potential of becoming a nuke. And her arc throughout the book series is her learning to understand and use what her abilities and her potential actually is. Therefore, her arc within the adaptation needs to be similar to that. And I think this episode is a good starting point for that arc in particular. And in case you're wondering, Ciri's episode will end with the death of her parents. Yennefer's episode will take place right after the adaptation of the short story where she debuts, and given that is, I think, the last major short story, it's possible that her episode will also close out the season. The plot of her episode is that she is attending a mage conference, and during that mage conference, we'll see Yennefer schmoozing and chatting with all of the other mages that are present and active within the northern kingdoms. We'll see how they live. We'll see how they keep themselves safe. We'll see how they entertain themselves. We'll see who they work for, or the northern royal courts where they work for, what the various royals of the northern kingdoms are like, etc. This could also be the conference where Yennefer herself is elected to be in the Mage Council, because why not? One thing I know for certain, though, is that this episode would have to end either with an attack or with news of an attack by the Nilfgaardian Empire. Not necessarily on some mage location, but generally somewhere within one of the northern kingdoms. Thereby setting in motion the main plot of the series as a whole. Aside from setting that main plot in motion, this episode should establish two things in particular. Firstly, it should establish who the various mage characters are, what makes each of them distinctive, and also how much power they wield. Not just hard power, and not just hard power as in what their spells can achieve, but also soft power. How much respect do they carry, and how much are people willing to allow them to act? The second thing it has to achieve is that it should establish who Yennefer is and what her role and her relation to role among her peers, and what her relation relationships to her peers are generally like. Unlike Ciri, Yennefer already knows who she is and what she can do, but she still carries somewhat of a chip on her shoulder, something that prevents her from being as as bombastic and as hedonistic as the rest of as the rest of the mages. So even though she is probably among the most capable among them, she still chooses to stay out of the spotlight for her own reasons. And honestly, that exploration of her reasons is something that the Netflix series bungled up spectacularly, because they really don't know what makes Yennefer interesting. They thought that going into her past as a hunchback, or having her become a character who you who you relate to because you feel sorry for would make her interesting, but that is not what you need to do with Yennefer. First of all, that doesn't work in general. Second of all, it's boring. And third of all, it goes completely against who Yennefer is in the books. And she has always this very magnificent presence in the books. She's a somewhat quiet but still snarky witch who who is capable of amazing magical feats in the book. And I will forever resent Netflix, or maybe just Lauren Hisrich, because I don't know who's responsible for that, for denying its audience the mature and learned badass Yennefer that book readers were able to experiment. And I'm very sure Anya Chalotra would have a lot of fun playing that version of Yennefer as well, rather than whatever it is she's been given in Netflix's Witcher adaptation. Anyway, Yennefer rant aside, that is what I would do with the that is what I would have done with the first season of Netflix's Witcher adaptation. I hope you enjoy my ideas. If you did, then please leave a like, and maybe even share this video wherever you think other people will like it as well. If you have anything to add to anything I said in this video, the comment section awaits your input. And if you want to see when my when my next video comes out, well then please subscribe. Ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.